We have a lot of countries today, and let me start with a presentation of our program. And if you have some comments or questions, you can ask and comment. But in terms of saving time, you can ask them by email. So today we're going to start the first session in a program that we have named Excellence in Teaching and Research. It will take place from today till the end of April. This is the program that is result of fruitful cooperation with Washington State University. And as you see in the slide, I hope you see that we have several sessions. The first one will take place today. Thank you, Professor Erdogan Koç, who was so kindly and so inspiring speaker on our previous session at Sunni State University, right?
Thank you.
And today he's going to present his presentation devoted to publishing in SSCI journals. We're all struggling with that. Next Friday, 5th of March, we're going to have Vincent Duffy. I'm very happy to present this person because he is my supervisor from Purdue University, who was actually gave me a lot of ideas on bibliometric analysis, and that's why we are having now papers published in top-ranked journals. And I'd like all of you to see this professor and be a part of it. Wednesday, 10th of March, we're going to have Dr. Christine Malik from University of Nebraska-Lincoln. She's an amazing instructor, and her sessions that was devoted to how to engage students, how to create syllabuses, and how to design teaching program was so interesting that my participants from the previous session still wants to have her as a speaker to have these opportunities. It's a gift for us. Next, two seminars will be presented from our side, from Sunni State University, Tatiana Pimonenko and Alexey Lulov, both doctors of science, both professors, and both in partnership will present bibliometric analysis toolbox. And then we're going to have three speakers in one presentation. Professor Deep Raja from Washington State University, our partner, and I with Alak Rasula will present our results and outcomes from virtual learning. We're going to have a webinar by Ali Faizan in March. Then I hope that one more speaker, very interesting in terms of his papers, publications, and experience, and very reputable scientist will join us. We're still in process of negotiation. And we're going to have Judith Shapiro from London School of Economics. She is a mentor and tutor for many years for many graduates and PhD students, and she was my supervisor at another postdoc program. She will present her, I would say, more motivational speech about how to connect teaching and research. And the last session will be performed by Professor Paul Cimberetta, with whom I was working at Montpellier, University of Montpellier. Now he's at Montpellier Business School, one of the brightest young researchers who became now a very well-known scholar. He is well, you should see him. So I hope you're gonna spend this time with us till the end, because in the end, after all of this joy and fun, we're gonna have individual assignment. And for those who will go through these challenges, we're gonna have panel discussion in the end and certificates issues. So this is all for now. And now I would like to present our first speaker. Okay, today we're going to have first session in the webinar set. Professor Erdogan Koç is a professor of behavioral science at Bahcesehir University. His papers published in top-ranked journals indexed in SSCI, such as Tourism Management, Public Relations Review, International Journal of Intercultural Relations, and he was selected to the Best Management Authors Hall of Fame by the Emerald Management Reviewers. Besides that, Professor Koç is an author of several books and book chapters published by internationally reputable publishers. One of his books, Consumer Behavior and Marketing Strategies, Global and Local Approach, is one of the most cited in the country. And his recent book, Cross-Cultural Aspect of Tourism and Hospitality, a Service Marketing and Management Perspective, was acknowledged by reviewers as the unique approach that unites both marketing and management dimensions with teaching toolbox and research findings in the field. So here you are. You have our speaker, and the stage is yours.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Shvindina. I'm very happy to be here with you all. There are so many people from all over the world. I'm happy to see you all. First, I'll upload my presentation. Let me do that first. Okay. Can you see that?
Yes, we can see that.
Yes, we can
Beautiful.
see.
Yes, we can.
Great. Okay. So the purpose or the motivation or the thrust behind this activity is that some people may not have the access to resources. They may be disadvantaged in terms of resources. I did actually a lot of face-to-face presentations and seminars on this topic, and recently because people do not have access to face-to-face presentations, I've started doing this through online sessions. People are asking me through emails, even through Instagram, so I thought it may be better to do such a thing, and Professor Shvindina's invitation was just timely and very good. So I thank her again. Right, okay, so publishing in the SSCI journals, Social Science Citation Index, okay, it is a bit more difficult in publishing in social science journals. Why is that the case? Because you need to have stronger arguments rather than just presenting your facts and findings. In all countries, actually, the proportion of social science citation papers to science citations is always lower. Okay. Somebody's microphone is on, I think. Right. Okay. Let me start with a quote. There's nothing so practical as good theory. So actually what we are doing here in research is that it should have both practical and theoretical implications. We should not forget this. Each study, especially today, especially in today's competitive publishing environment, should have practical and theoretical implications. In the past, maybe a decade ago, it was more or less possible to publish a paper if it had only practical implications. Nowadays, it's becoming quite difficult, especially given the fact that these days people are working hard and some journals have got a pile of accepted journals, accepted papers, early cite papers. So I know that some journals have got 3 years of stock. So you need to be really ready for this competitive environment in terms of publishing. So these days, rejections are more common because there are so many papers accepted by the journals. They have got stocks of journals to last them, even for some of them, 2 to 3 years. So it's easy for them to say no to your paper. Okay, so this is the fact about the proportion of social science to science papers. Actually, we should ask ourselves that are we uncovering the truth in research, first of all? Okay, many studies do not tend to. Why? Because they may not be reflecting the reality. There are the methods you use may not be actually allowing you to uncover the truth. For instance, I mainly study tourism and hospitality, services and services marketing and management. In one survey, we asked hotel managers whether it was important for them how attractive the backstage employees' appearance. Okay, and of course, overwhelmingly, they said no. Since they are backstage, we do not pay any attention to their attractivity. Then we carried out a scenario-based study, and we gave them a task to solve. We said that you are to recruit one person for this position, and these are the applicants. And we have provided people with short profiles with photos of them. And in the end, we saw that people all opted for attractive people. Okay, so had we done that study with only traditional survey, we would have said that they're all rational and they don't make irrational decisions like that. Okay, so first of all, we need to look at these sort of things. Are we really uncovering the truth in terms of the methods we used? So you need to be careful about that, because many top-tier journals these days, they're after triangulation. In terms of your data collection, whether you have used more than one method, okay? Have you just used one survey? That may not be enough. In fact, in the past, we carried out research in top-tier journals. That wasn't the case, but nowadays they have realized that, and they're after that more and more. Okay, so right. Actually, what surveys do is that you ask somebody a question, and you expect that he or she will tell you the truth. That may not be possible. We call this, in fact, can you try to tickle yourself? Try it. It won't happen. So surveys are a bit like that, because you know that you're tickling yourself. You're not getting the actual truth. You are not getting the fact. So under the influence of impression management, people do not tend to respond to these questions truthfully. Okay, they don't want to. They want to impress you, or sometimes they don't remember you. They don't know it, and they give an answer, and on that basis, you think that you have uncovered something, which may not be the case. Okay, let's kick off. We start from here. A good research, a good paper should have 3 characteristics. Today, the presentation will center around these 3 things. It needs to be original, it needs to be important, and it needs to be well written. So we will look at what we mean by originality, how we arrive at an original idea and how we make important papers and how we write well-written papers. Okay, so originality. This is the first thing editors and reviewers look at. So some researchers, especially young researchers, they learn a concept and then they learn a method like structural equation modeling, and they say, let's apply it here. Well, it's not as simple as that. You need to have an original idea. What do we mean by original idea? An original idea is one which has got two characteristics. It needs to surprise people and it needs to give pleasure. Pleasure when you see it, aha, that's clever, that's intelligent, and it makes you happy. It's a bit like cracking a joke, a good joke. So for a joke, it needs to be quite unexpected. It needs to be quite creative. Okay, so we need to concentrate on this fact. So many studies look at like the influence of customer satisfaction on brand loyalty, or the influence of organizational commitment on motivation. I call them as papers which are axiomatic. What do we mean by that? You know the result. As if you ask the person, would water get you wet? And then you do the study and then you say, yes, it gets you wet. Well, we need that, okay? So it needs to be original. It needs to be something which had not been thought out before. Okay, so axiomatic means that it is known, okay? So the SSCI journals are after original ideas, original papers, and most referees use this word axiomatic. That means you are doing a study on something already known, okay? So don't do that. Okay, things like influence of customer satisfaction on brand image, influence of loyalty on repurchase behavior, influence of job satisfaction on the motivation of employees. We all know them, okay? So some studies turn out to be hypothesis testing exercises. I know that in many countries, in the master's and in the PhD programs, students have got so many hypothesis tests to test. Some have got 50, 80 hypotheses. That means you're not really doing something important. You should have a bit like less than maybe 10, maximum 10, 12 hypotheses. If you're testing something like 80 hypotheses, you're not doing something important, that's for sure. Okay, so a paper's vigor is very much based on the quality of the argument it presents. And at the beginning we said theoretical and practical implications. Theoretical and practical implications are based on what? Based on originality, and without originality, you will not have any important theoretical implications, because you will be saying what others said, okay? You will be saying things like, okay, customers' satisfaction is very important. We should try to satisfy customers. We should pay attention to customer loyalty. We should try to satisfy our employees so that they work better, efficiently, and whatever. We know that, okay? So originality is the starting point. If you get it wrong, nothing will happen. You will not have vigor. You will not have any theoretical or practical implications in the end. So let's spend more time on that, okay? So let's not jump into early decisions. Okay, this is the idea, that kind of a thing. Let's do some sort of a brainstorming. Let's ask friends. Okay, let's meet with people from different areas. Interdisciplinary research is becoming quite important these days. Okay, right. Okay, what do we mean by an original idea? Well, when we say originality, we don't mean something really complicated. It should be simple. When I was doing my PhD in the UK, my supervisor used to say that, okay, you have an idea. Now, in the evening, go to the pub, say it to someone, and whether that person will understand it or not. Okay, so it should be as simple as that. Look, I'm doing a PhD, I'm doing so many complicated things, I'm clever, I'm intelligent. No, you should be able to make it simple so that people understand it. So that's one of the requirements of it. It should be simple. Okay. As I said, it's a bit like cracking a good joke. It should surprise people and it should make people happy. It should amaze and amuse, I would say. When reading a good paper, an original paper, the reader would be amazed and would be amused as well. You should be able to do that. Okay, so also it should increase the reader's curiosity. It should arouse the curiosity to read the next line, next paragraph, or the rest of the paper. Without that, I'm sure you start reading books. Sometimes I stop reading it after the first 25 pages because you feel that it's not going anywhere. So it is a bit like the same with the papers. Okay, so when an editor, when a reviewer reads it, okay, they start with some motivation. Okay, this is a new paper, let me read it. First few lines, first paragraph is getting worse and worse. Then he or she will try to find faults with your paper, okay, because he or she hasn't liked it. So it's all about emotions, okay? So we are doing something scientific, but our decisions are very much emotional. As a behavioral scientist, I should tell you that in our brain, we have the limbic system, the emotional part, and the prefrontal cortex, which is the rational part. And the number of messages coming from this side, from the emotional part to the rational part, are a few hundred times more. So guess, how do we make decisions? Rationally or emotionally? Okay, so of course, knowledge, facts are important, but at the beginning of the first two paragraphs, if we didn't like it, we didn't like it. It will be all uphill after that. Right. So what is an original idea? It should not replicate anything. Okay, they did one similar in the USA, but not in my country. Then it is original. No, I'm afraid it's not original. It should be original to the world. Okay, so well, it was done, it was carried out in this sector, but not in this sector. So it should be original. I'm afraid no. Okay, so originality should come from both theory, a good understanding of the theory, and you should try to identify the gaps in the theory. And that gap should be interesting, valuable, and important. Right. Okay. So many studies fail to go beyond just hypothesis testing. It's a good exercise. Thank you very much. Bye. Okay. That may be the response. Don't do something which was done in another country but not done in your country. That doesn't make it original, or this was not done in this industry, so let me do it in this industry. It's going to be original. Okay, how do we arrive at original ideas? Okay, that's important. How do we create ideas? For especially young academicians, I would advise them to concentrate on one industry. Okay, so you may concentrate on banking, health, you may concentrate on tourism and hospitality. Okay, why? Because if you concentrate in one industry, you would know that industry very well. You can become an expert, you would understand the problems in that industry better, and you are more likely to come up with interesting original ideas. So one paper is in automobile industry, one paper in a different one, another one in another one. Okay, sometimes we do that. Okay, it's a bit like in a football, good pass, you have to score it. We all do that, but don't do that all the time. Try to concentrate in one industry. You will be able to understand that industry, and you will be able to create more original ideas. Okay. My advice to you, to read. Okay. They say that if you are going to be a poet, read poems. Okay. So you need to read a lot of papers. So we, as members of the editorial boards of many journals, we read about 400 journal papers a year. As a young scientist, a young researcher, I would expect at least 100, 150 papers from top tier journals. Okay, no pain, no gain. Maybe you have connected with this program, you thought you were gonna get some really easy tips. Well, I'm afraid you have to read a lot of papers. There's no shortcut in that. Okay, I'm sorry to say that. Actually, I'm not sorry. Anything valuable, it is difficult. If it is easy, then it wouldn't be valuable. So value is very much to do with hardship and rarity. Okay, so if something is common and if it is really easy to get, it wouldn't be valuable. So it needs to be rare and it needs to be difficult to get. Then you place value on that. Okay, right. When you read papers, concentrate on the limitations of research part, because over there, authors usually talk about what they couldn't in this study. So maybe they give you ideas on that. I know that some say that, well, the sample size was really small in this study. We recommend that in future studies with larger sample sizes should be used and whatever. I'm not referring to those types of comments. They may say that we looked at this part of the issue. Future studies may look at these other parts. So those other parts may be really interesting ideas. So especially I would recommend you, the young scholars, young researchers, to read review papers. These days, review papers have to identify the trends in an industry, in an area. Let's think that it is customer satisfaction or whatever, organizational commitment, and they need to identify the gaps in the literature. So they are showing you that, look, these are the areas where you might do further future research. So I advise you to read more papers, and especially review papers, literature review papers. I would particularly recommend, especially young researchers, to develop, to understand, and also the theories need to be understood at some depth. Okay, so your grasp of the area should go beyond glossary. Okay, so you shouldn't just be able to define a topic. Self-concept is blah blah blah, not be something deeper than that. It's antecedents, it is repercussions, and its relationships with other concepts and theories you should immediately be able to think about. Okay, so you need to have a good understanding of the theory. So these days, young scholars, they just concentrate on the techniques, and they in fact neglect the theory a bit. So without understanding the theory, you wouldn't be able to produce good papers. So for instance, with a former PhD student of mine, he's now an associate professor, we carry out research through psychophysiological tools, neuromarketing tools, and actually we are more or less the pioneers in this area. So we do review for a lot of papers. We see that so many people do neuromarketing study. The originality is just a tool. Well, they don't know the theory. The idea should be original. Your tool, just because you used psychophysiological tool, that doesn't mean that your research is original. Okay, so they still measure the influence of customer satisfaction on loyalty, but through these tools. So that again is not acceptable. It's not original. Okay, so please try to concentrate on the theory. You should know the theory very well. Okay. And also you should read the implications sections of the papers. Theoretical implications, practical implications, what they have found in this paper, and what are the implications of the findings. So you should especially pay attention to those sections of the papers. Okay, as I recommended, review papers. Okay, how many articles do you read per year? Try to increase that every year. Okay, so apart from reading within your sphere, within your area, you should read other books from other areas. For instance, I use a lot of psychological theories and concepts in my research. My background is not psychology. I'm a marketing person. I also use a lot of organizational behavior concepts and theories in my area. Especially I study service marketing and management is quite applicable. So I transform these theories into a different area. Okay, then it adds some originality. For instance, there's a theory, attachment theory in psychology. Now people are trying to use it in marketing, in organizational behavior. So things like that you should go after maybe. Okay. What else? I also advise you to write in themes. Try to collaborate with other people, brainstorming sessions, because you may think that sometimes you have got the most original idea, but a friend of yours or another one might say, well, it is not. Then you realize. So in management, we know that brainstorming is good, participative decision making is good, because it's the synergy. Okay. Right. What else? Where else the original ideas do come from? Chat with people from the industry, from people in other areas. You need to have chats. So when you talk to people in the industry, you can see that, there's a problem here, and that's an neglected area. Can we do some research on that? Okay, so that's quite important. As I said, I recommend you, the young researchers, to concentrate on a sector, on an industry like tourism, banking, health, or whatever. And what else? Some original ideas may come even from a movie that you have seen, or from a book you read in your leisure time. Okay, one of my paper idea came from this book, Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers. Okay, actually, before the program, Hannah, there was somebody from South Korea. There was an anecdote in this book about South Korea. Apparently, in the 80s, there were so many aeroplane crashes in South Korea. It was due to the fact that, not due to any technical problem or anything like that, it was to do with subordinate and superior communication between the second pilot and the first pilot. Because it's a high power distance country, young second pilot was not able to provide brief, fast, quick messages to the senior captain of the aeroplane. As a result, because instead of saying turn left immediately, he was able to say maybe, excuse me, sir, how would you look at the idea of turning left? Would you like to consider? Well, the plane crashes. Based on that idea, I have compared the hotels in the UK and in Turkey. In Turkey, the power distance is high, like in your country, Hannah, in Ukraine, and in England, UK, it is low. So based on a scenario study, I asked the subordinates how would they convey this message to their superiors. Okay, in Turkey, it appeared that subordinates used indirect messages. In the UK, they used direct messages. What does that mean? What are the implications of that? Well, in the UK, the problems may get solved quicker. Okay, so this basic idea, can you see it? It's really basic. It was published in a reputable journal, International Journal of Human Resource Management, A++ journal it is. Okay, so you never know where the idea might come. Even from a book you read in your leisure time may give you an idea, even a movie. So you should have a pen and a notebook aside even when you're watching a movie, I would say. Right. Let's come to the writing part. So it should be well written. Well, in terms of well written, the first thing is don't procrastinate. What does that mean? Some people think that, well, I got it sorted out in my brain. I have it. No, you haven't. Okay, sit down and start writing, because you need to really spend some time on writing. Okay, and you need to refine it once, twice, 3 times. You need to do that. So the first thing is get down on it and write it. Okay, so don't think that you've sorted out in your mind. Stop messing around. The PhD students do that. They think that they've done it. In 2 months, they could write it. And then later they realize that, well, it takes a bit more than 2 months. Actually, it may take a year or so. All right. When you write, each sentence should be written with care and patience. And I'm not saying for the sake of it. Okay, please pay attention to each sentence. Why have you put that sentence there? What is the purpose of it? Without that sentence, would something be missing? What is the relationship of that sentence with the previous one, with the one after, or with the paragraph it is in? So each sentence make the reader feel that, okay? It shouldn't look odd, it shouldn't look strange in that sentence, okay? Remember, each sentence should have a purpose. Make sure that each sentence relates to the paragraph it is in and the sentence before and after, as I said earlier on. Okay, another common criticism is that your paper lacks cohesiveness. Cohesiveness means what? Well, a good flow, okay? Your paper lacks integration, okay? You mention something that, and after that, well, it shouldn't be like putting a shopping list, putting glossary items. If you got you know, a number of variables in your study, you just explain them. Well, it is not that, okay? There should be relationship between them. At the end of the first paragraph, you should make the person ready for the next paragraph, okay? So, for instance, when you are telling a friend about a movie, you don't just say all of a sudden, the blonde girl comes and kills the man. You don't say that. You do some sort of a previous preparation. Well, there is this blonde girl. She hates the man. Whatever. You do some sort of a preparation before that. Otherwise, it would be like you are in the car. You're pressing on the accelerator and then a sharp brake and then gas, accelerator. It shouldn't make it like that. It should go smoothly like that. It should take the reader as if he's or she's on a you know, some sort of a ship, you know, on the waves. Okay, may not be a good example. Well, okay. Each paragraph should relate with the other, and construct. Construct is a good term we use. What are you going to say and in which order? That's important. There needs to be a construct, a body, okay? And actually what I do when I write a paper as a traditional old man, I print it out and I leave it aside for a couple of days, and then I take it and I look at it as if it is something strange to me, as if it is somebody else's. Then I go over with my red pen. That's rather silly. Why do you say that here, not here, and that? And if I do it, something like 3-4 raffinations, it is always really good. So you shouldn't be, you know, after quick results. I've just written, there's no need for a check, let's send it out. Okay, well, there is that temptation. You want to send it immediately, but be patient. I'm a very impatient person, okay? I can't play chess because I'm so impatient, okay? But I've learned to become patient when I'm writing papers. I have to be patient. In nothing else, I'm patient, but in writing papers. Okay. A good smooth flow in the paper, okay? Because everything is cohesive, everything is flowing. There are no sharp brakes and then accelerator movements, okay? Construct of the paper is extremely important, as I said. What to say when, the order, and the way things are expressed, okay? So don't just put literature review as if explaining the concepts, okay? They are your ingredients in the dish you make, Okay, see them as the ingredients in your meal you are preparing. Okay, so how they relate to others, and when. So when you are cooking spaghetti bolognese, okay, you don't just first put I should remember my cooking skills first before giving examples. Okay, so there's some sort of an order. If you put the tomatoes first, then you will get different results maybe. Right. Some of the common criticisms by the reviewers: lack of focus, lack of cohesion. These are important. So be patient, read it again, and ask someone else to read it for you. Sometimes we cannot see the mistakes in what we write. Okay, so when you send me a paper and I look at it, okay, there's a mistake on the title. Well, you can't see it because you've been involved in it so much, you can't see it. Not being able to see the forest for the trees, they say in English. Yeah. Okay. It's all about telling a good story. In social sciences, we tell stories, not maybe so much maybe in finance and economics, but in especially marketing, especially in management, especially in many other areas, we are telling a good story. Okay, somebody's microphone is on. Okay, so there should be no grammatical and typographical errors. Okay, so what happens if I spelled one word, misspelled a word? Well, if the reviewer sees one and then another one, well, he or she starts digging the grave. Okay, they are really inclined to make a rejection, because rejection is such a safe thing. Okay, because when you reject it, oh, so good, and you can reject any papers. Bring me the most respected person in your area, bring his or her paper to me, I can reject it immediately. I can find faults with it. Okay, but the referees or reviewers are inclined to make rejections. Why? Because it is, as I said, safer. If you accept, if you give the accept decision for a paper which is not up to it, the editor may think that, well, he's not doing a proper job. Okay, and it is quite risky for you. So because of that, many reviewers are more inclined to make rejections. And if they see one grammatical typographic error here, another one there, okay, they start digging the grave for the author. Okay, don't do that. Okay, simple mistakes, a bit like bickering with someone. Okay, you know, children do that, couples do that. They start collecting information, but you do that, that kind of a thing. Okay, the referee would do that. Last week you forgot that week you did not do that, and then, well, all of them are not important maybe, but enough to make a conclusion that you are bad, your paper is bad. Okay, right. References should be complete and accurate. Paper format should be similar to that of the journal. Look at the journal. How do they write their references? What sort of font they use? How do they have what sort of a format do they have? Because we like things which are similar to us. Okay. Of course, new things are also interesting for us, but For instance, research shows that people get married. Somebody's microphone. Okay. People get married with people who have got similar first or second names. The proportion of that is 13 times higher than other. Or people get married with people who look like their mothers or fathers or whatever, because when it is similar, it is not threatening, it is not risky. So make your paper, at least in terms of format, similar to that of the journal. Okay. Familiarity, because it reduces the perception of threat and risk and increases liking. Okay, especially don't make grammatical errors in the first 4 or 5 pages. You can make lots of mistakes in the remaining pages. No, I'm not saying that, but especially it is important in the first 4 or 5 pages, because it's really a big mistake. Because if you've got a few mistakes there, you know, there is something called, people count on first impressions. You don't have a second chance to make a first impression, they say, for the job interviews. You wouldn't have a second chance to make a first impression. So, and also there's another English saying, first impressions are the ones that count. Okay, so beware of that too. Okay, as I said, inclined to reject the referees because it's safer for them. They are not so sensitive. They don't see you, and they would be happy to push you off the cliff. They don't know who they are pushing off the cliff, okay? And it's easy for them. You may feel you got pushed off a cliff, but you should be doing some homework so as not to face that situation. Okay, in terms of well-written, clearly lay out the theoretical foundations of your paper, the theoretical relations, gaps in the literature. That's very important. You should identify the gaps in the literature, and your study should be based on the gap, and that gap should be important, and that gap should be explained really clearly to the reader. Make the contribution of the paper, theoretical and practical implications, more salient. People may not be able to see that. Make sure that it is salient. Look, I have done this. It's not just that by looking at your tables they'll be able to see that. You should emphasize it in a good way, in good communication. Okay, when we mean well written, you should also be able to get rid of the unnecessary parts, especially if a paper is being written based on a dissertation. That is usually the case. It would be difficult to get rid of some parts because you have written a dissertation, you think each part is so valuable, you cling to it. You can't get rid of that part, but you should be able to. Okay, it is nice, it is important, but not for this paper. So you should be objective in that manner. You can't put so many things. And there is an increasing trend that papers are getting shorter and shorter. Now they're expecting something like 6,000 words long papers these days, 7,000, not 11,000 these days. Okay, so it should be brief. You should be able to say what you're going to say in a short paper. You should be saying only the very essential things, highly relevant things, and things which fit your construct. They should remain. Otherwise, you should be really ruthless. Get rid of them. Okay? You should be And if you do raffinations, refining of the paper, second, third time, you should be able to see those better, actually. Okay, when we say writing, please avoid writing long and complicated sentences. In some languages, people think that in English, if I write in English, I should show that I know English so well, I should form long and complicated sentences. But it is not the case. Try to write simple sentences. It's a bit like similar to people try to, when they learn English, they try to speak so fast. Okay? Well, as people's education and the level of intellect, when they increase, the speed of communication would go down. Listen to people on television. When people are really well educated, when they have a high level of intellect, they tend to speak slowly, okay? And it is similar in terms of the sentences. Please form simple sentences, okay? Not extremely simple, of course. And in one sentence, concentrate on only one idea. Don't try to say a few things in one sentence. And also show your paper to other colleagues and get their ideas, because as I said, they can see the things you may not be able to see. And as a traditional old man, I may say that I would advise printing your manuscript, taking it with you, and using, traditional method of pen and to change things on your paper. As I said, sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees, unable to step back and see the whole thing. Right. Also, divide the sentences into sections and search each section in Google Scholar or in general Google with quotation marks. What do we mean by that? Okay, for instance, the whole sentence you have formed, okay, because I'm talking about this for the people for whom English is not the first language, of course. Write the full sentence, then divide it into two, and look for the sentence in quotation marks in Google Scholar. Try to see whether people form similar sentences. Don't use the whole sentence, because otherwise that means you have stolen that sentence. It shouldn't be the case, okay? Half of the sentence, or whether you should say different than or different from. You can see that how many million hits there are for each one, and based on that you can do that. Okay, if you're looking for definitions, use things like can be defined as, stands for, and things like that. And that was the word I was looking for, plagiarism. You should not have the full sentence already in a paper. Okay, so examples here, you can see, you can look for a part of a sentence whether something like that could be said in English. And we, after so many years, we still do that because you feel that the adjective does not sound very right here, or you have to change something. It doesn't give you that feel, so you have to check it. Okay, so do these sort of searches in the Google Scholar and in Scholar General, in Google's General. Okay, I advise you not to use the services of proofreading people. 95% of them are after your money. You are wasting your money. Okay, believe me, they don't know your area. They don't know the terms, and sometimes they don't know anything. Okay, Actually, we were doing quite a few studies, and one of my PhD students saw that I was not able to concentrate on the paper in terms of writing it myself. So he said, can we send it to for proofreading? So they found someone actually through Elsevier and Taylor and Francis and that kind of a, there are platforms and they advertise those people. And in the end, that person was his mother tongue was English. He was an associate professor of something, but he made the paper a mess, actually, because, for instance, the terms are different. We say service failure in marketing services terminology. He was referring to service mistakes. There's not such thing, okay? So I advise you to develop yourself and to write your papers on your own, okay? In the end, for fine-tuning, you may send it, but at the early stage, if you send it to a proofreader, it will the final product will not be a good one. Actually, there are people who started with me writing papers. Okay, now they are able to write their own. So invest 3 years, 4 years, suffer for 3 years and 4 years. After that, you will be able to write papers of your own. Okay, but if you use proofreaders for all your lifetime, you'll be depending on them. Microphone is open. Okay. Right. All right. And also you may use things like applications, Grammarly. Of course, it doesn't write it for you, but it points out some of the things you need. You have got a missing comma there, or change that with which, change that which with that, and things like that. There's a paid and free application. You may use of course, the paid one. Apparently, I haven't got it. Maybe more helpful for you. Okay, right. Okay, Hannah, how am I doing with time?
You're doing perfectly well. I think we can stay here as long as we can.
Numbers are not declining, I hope, as I go through.
No, numbers are increasing. That's why you can hear mics.
All right. Okay. So, determination of the journal. I have written a paper and now I will have to find a journal. A bit too late, mate, because you should have done it early. Why? Because you write a paper for a few papers in your mind, because your paper should relate to those journals. Usually we have that. The editor would say to you that, well, you have sent us a paper and your paper does not depend on the arguments in our journal. Okay? So they feel offended. Okay? You have ignored us, not because you have ignored the references, but also the arguments. You don't know what we're doing here in this journal, mate, they say. Okay? Not in that language, of course. Right. Okay. So it should be made earlier, before, when it was in the ideal level, go through the journals, because journals have got certain perspectives. Okay. So some of them, although the name is International Marketing Research or International Marketing Review, where do they have the pause, the emphasis? You should read the aims and objectives of the journal. Okay, what sort of papers do they want? So otherwise, you will get a desk reject quite easily. Okay, what sort of journals? First of all, I would recommend Calls for Special Issues. Slightly easier, because people who apply for a call for a special issue are not so many. Okay, they may be pressed for enough number of papers, but that doesn't mean that they will be extremely lenient. They may be slightly lenient on that. Okay, don't expect miles of difference, because they wouldn't jeopardize the respect or respectability of the journal. They would not like to jeopardize that. But calls for special issues are slightly easier to get something published. If you ask me whether I have, no, I have so far I haven't been able to catch such an opportunity. Suitability of the journal, as I said, an excellent paper may receive rejection if it has not been sent to the right journal. Okay, aren't they all these marketing journals? Aren't these all services? No, they've got different perspectives, and you should know that. Impact of the paper, too low, too high. This is my first paper, and I'd like to publish it in Q1. Nothing else is unacceptable. Well, you know, brace and behold. First of all, look at yourself, what you can do. You know, of course, it is good to have high expectations of yourself, but you know, you should look at the stars, but your feet should be on the ground. What you could do and you could not do. It's of course good to have high expectations. Check Scopus, Elsevier, Scimago, Journal Ranking, and ScienceVal to find out about the impact of the paper. Use these platforms to get more information about the paper. Also look at the paper in terms of, journal. How many volumes do they publish a year? Only 2 volumes. Well, it is tricky then, okay? And in each volume, how many papers? Well, 4 in each volume and 2 volumes per year. Well, that means that place is quite a competitive place, okay? And there are some other SSCI journals, they publish 12 volumes, and for each they publish 15 papers. Well, it may be a better idea, but that doesn't mean that there are journals like that. They publish 12 volumes a year, and in each volume they publish 15 papers. They are still competitive, but don't try journals, you know, which publish 2 volumes a year and only a couple of papers in each volume. They are really difficult. The otherwise may not be correct, but this is correct. Okay, like semi-annual, and if they publish 4 or 5 papers, then it may not be suitable for you. If rejected, have you determined where to send next? Well, you should have that too. And not only changing the references quickly. Okay, I'm gonna send it to this journal. Let's change. Let's get rid of those references. Let's add references from this journal, and it's gonna be okay. Well, people are not so stupid. If you come across a careful reader, a reviewer, he will say that, well, these references do not sound in place. It's a bit like using a post-it. You put it there, but it's not very strong there. It comes out quite easily. Right. Okay, other issues. Well, title and abstract. Is the abstract too long, too short? Well, there are word limits now on the abstract. Abstract is a very mechanical place, but it is the place you market your paper. So it should tell enough in a clear way about the paper, because usually people read the abstract and the conclusions and then decide whether they read the paper or not. So abstract is an important part. You cannot show a lot of talent there maybe, but the talent is that to be brief and clear there, and to be comprehensive in some respect. Comprehensive, well, in 6-7 lines to be comprehensive of the whole paper. You need to be careful about that. Is it too plain or too confusing? Does it represent the study? Does it hide anything? Why should the readers of an international journal be interested in a study you carried out in your country? The title, okay? Sometimes they do these sort of things, okay? You carry out one study in one city, in one part of the world. Why should be the readers of an international journal interested in that city? Okay, so try to make at least country-wise studies. Okay, my recommendation. No one would like to read about one particular city they don't know, they haven't heard, or they have heard it's just a name for them. Okay. Avoid city names in the titles unless extremely necessary or relevant. Also, is the abstract clear, concise, representative, and comprehensive? Sorry. At the same time, making corrections, as you say. I'll do that later. Okay. No, I should be putting that comma there. I couldn't. I've changed the clavier, I think. Okay. Right. Methodology and method. First topic, then methodology, and then the method. Some people, the young scholars, they learn about one method, like structural equation modeling, and then they think that, well, I should think of an idea. It's a bit like having a key and trying to find a door for that key in the city. You try the doors. Well, first of all, you should have the idea. Then you'll think how you would measure this, and then comes the method. Okay, so don't start with the method in mind. Right. We already talked about triangulation. That means in data collection, try to use more methods, not only a survey, maybe in-depth interviews, other means, other things, or newer research like psychophysiological tools, neuromarketing tools, and things like that. Okay. Scales. I should emphasize that as well. Student samples, don't do that. Okay. Young lecturers use student samples, and sometimes they are in the role of a employee. They are in the role of a consumer. They are your captive audience. Please don't use them as your sample. Good journals don't accept samples comprising student cohort. Okay, scales. In my PhD courses, sometimes I do that. I ask the students to explain 2 scales each in each session, and then they realize that this scale does not sound right. It wouldn't measure this. This item, this question is silly. These dimensions are not relevant, and things like that. Because some people there are some people out there, they just worship the scales. The scale, you should have a scale in the study, and what. Of course, in terms of statistical analysis, you need to have that. but try to be creative, innovative, use survey scenario method and things like that. Attach it to it. Okay, so don't worship the scales. Do not have a scale obsession. Use scenario-based studies. I like scenario-based studies. Psychophysiological tools like neuromarketing tools, EEG, eye tracker, GSR, galvanic skin response. It finds out it's like a lying machine. It identifies whether you're telling the truth. It detects the small temperature changes in your body. And it tells us whether you like something or not. HR, facial recognition. We did a lot of research on that, actually, facial recognition, because there are about 90 muscles on your face. And when you use an eye tracker and facial recognition, we know that you are 63% happy, 32% joyful, and 22% surprised. We could do these sort of measurements. Okay, where do you collect data from? When? Okay, when you collect data when they are hungry, they will give you a different response. That's important. We collected data. We asked people to fill in the survey just before their planes took off. Well, maybe they were really pressed for time. They were really in a panic. How do you know that they, effectively filled in your form? So these issues are quite important. When they're hungry, also, for instance, when you're not hungry, you will. There are research studies on that showing that people respond differently according to the amount of food, when they have eaten, and things like that. So, if you're doing studies on neophilia or neophobia, and if you have not checked when they ate last, your responses are not dependable. Their responses are not dependable. Right. Okay. The method, what sort of research design? Is it appropriate, suitable, rational? Have you done pre-testing, pilot testing? These days, they really look at those. You should have a pilot test first and maybe make adjustments in your questions and things like that, whether they understood your survey or some areas whether they did not make sense and things like that. Reliability, validity, bias, and things like that. They are quite important. For instance, we did a research. We asked managers by using a scale, okay? By using a scale, we asked them how good they were in problem solving. There was a problem-solving inventory. I can't remember the scale's author. And they gave themselves really high scores. I am so good in problem solving. And then we asked them to solve a problem in a McKinsey test. McKinsey and Company. They use it for recruiting young consultants, junior consultants. And out of those managers, only one was able to respond to all of the questions. They were basic, reading numbers, understanding figures, graphs, and things like that. So people make exaggerations about themselves. So don't feel that just because you've asked them to fill in a survey, you found the truth. Don't jump into conclusions. So don't be so sure of you. Okay, reviewers don't like people who are really so sure. Don't use this is like this. This happens. use things like may happen and things like that. They are better. Okay. Okay. My sound voice echoed there. Okay, objectives. Literature review. Avoid having a heading of the literature review. Don't use literature review heading. Use the concepts you are discussing in the paper because it looks amateurish. Avoid giving a series of definitions. You're not providing a glossary, a shopping list. And it's not a place like gossiping. Hofstede said this, Trompinar said that. It's not. Only try to give the ones which will help you explain your objective, why you are carrying out the search, why it is important. Otherwise, don't provide them. Okay. The paper should not be, the literature review should not be descriptive. That's another common mistake, another area of criticism. They want argumentative papers. So when you are just explaining concepts in the literature review, you are being descriptive. You should show that you have the level of depth in your thinking. You have understood, you have such a grasp of that field that you have understood the tiny bits, the relationships between those theories. Then it is an argument based. Okay? Don't give just the definitions of concepts. Okay, it should take the reader towards the light at the end of the tunnel. So it should have some sort of a flow, the literature review as well. And another important thing, the research rationale, the raison d'etre of your paper. Why should this paper exist? The reason for its existence, okay? Well, you should provide facts, figures, and references. If you're writing a paper on stress, you should be able to show facts. For instance, like what? Well, every year, so many people are suffering stress, and as a result of that, so many hours of work, which translates to so many billions of dollars and whatever. And then you should also have rationale for your specific topic, not only for your stress general topic, and also why you did this bit of study relating to stress. Okay, and that should be based on the theoretical gaps you have identified. Okay, some people think that, okay, let's hit the two things, two variables, and that's it. No, that's not the case. Okay, literature review, not too long, not too short, just sufficient. It should be up to date. Okay, of course, if you're referring to cognitive dissonance, Festinger, you should refer to Festinger at least once in your paper, 1930 something. But overall, your paper should have references in these years. Okay, you should have also references from the journal you submit, and also the citations to the editor. Okay, people are weak, so he or she may think that, how dare you have ignored me, I have got papers in this area, how can you ignore me? They may say that. Okay, they may not say it openly, but you would see the end result. Okay, right. As I said, the need for this paper, the reason for its existence, there should be practical and theoretical reasons why this paper should exist, why you have embarked on this study, and they all should be written in an argumentative way, not in a simple, superficial, descriptive way. It should be supported by facts, figures, and references. Okay, not too many. Bear with me a few more minutes. Okay. Presentations of the findings. Some people have just what they do is just put the table there, and then as if it's a bit like, you know, I don't know whether it happens in your country. In the past, children used to ring the doorbells and they used to just run away. A bit like that. Put the table and run away. It's not like that. You should explain the table. You should refer to the table. Tell me, what does that number mean? And actually that part of your paper is not only presentation of the findings. It is findings, analysis, and interpretation. You should interpret them in the light of the literature. And the literature, relating it to literature, some authors do that as if like they've just remembered, I should do that. Okay, our study draws parallels with John and Smith, but it contradicts with the findings of Jenkins and something. It's not that. Something deeper than that. Why it may be the case that it contradicts, why it may be the case that it draws parallels. If it's only about parallels, why have you embarked on this study? You should explain it, okay? And also, one thing I've just remembered, sometimes my PhD students used to tell me, okay, the hypotheses have not been supported. It is the end of the world. Well, it is not. Let's look at it. Maybe we rewrite the literature. We don't change the results, but something not supported may be more important. We haven't thought out something maybe, okay? So, of course, in terms of ethical side, you don't touch the results, but you may change the whole literature of your study, okay? So, actually, we made a few turnarounds like that in the past, and they got published, the papers in the end. Right. I have already talked about that. Are your findings important? Interesting. Are they interesting? Okay. Are they correct? Okay. PhD students tell me this is what came out, as if, you know, you put something here, there's some sort of a process, and something comes out. Well, you should be able to understand whether this makes sense or not, whether it is correct. How could that be possible? While the range is between 1 to 10, your result is 2 million. Okay, so you should try to understand those facts. I used to work for a large conglomerate in Turkey, and I used to have a secretary, and in those days, I used to write a message and she used to type it. And she was not very good at computer, writing on the computer. And I used to write something, and in the end, I used to see that there were a few hundred mistakes on the paper. And for the second time, again, some other 100. And she used to say, oh, has the printer got this? As if she has not done it, yeah? Okay, the results are yours. You should understand whether they are correct or not, what they mean. So that don't tell your supervisor that these are the things which come out, okay? You have made them come out, so you should have full control of them. Right. Theoretical implications. You should have one heading, definitely theoretical implications. Practical implications you should have, and you should clearly explain the contribution of your paper. These days, they need to be clearly laid out, shown in your paper with separated headings. Conclusions. Don't be so happy. It's not the conclusion of the presentation. conclusions section in the paper. Okay, no, don't worry, a few pages more. Okay, conclusions, not too short, not too long. It is not another summary of the paper. You just concentrate on one or two major findings of your research, and then you say what you want to say to the practitioners. Okay, it's not another summary of your paper. Many people do another summary in the conclusions, which is not the place. Okay, all right. Limitations of the paper should be stated. Limitations, another area, as if people do that without unwillingly. Let's write something. We should find something for here. Well, the sample size could have been larger. It should make sense. There should be some recommendations for future research as well. So limitations, and you are responsible for every part of it. For us, for lecturers, we like teaching, but we don't like marking. So I don't like marking, so I just make them like small things. I throw them away, and the farthest which could go would fetch the highest marks. Well, you have got the responsibility for all of them, actually. Okay. So, right, limitations should be stated, and ethics of it. Please be ethical. Don't get your thesis written by others. Do not play with data. And these days they are asking the proofs and things like that. It's becoming more and more difficult. And some final recommendations for you, especially the young researchers. These are the things which take you up to success. Knowledge, hard work, sincerity, and humility. But these are the things which pull you down. Ego, jealousy, cheat, and laziness, don't have them. Okay, academic work is an interesting area. It's got a lot of freedom. They say that you can work whatever 80 hours a week you want. Okay, so it is still a hard work. You still work 80 hours, but you do that more or less whenever you want. And thank you very much for listening to me. That's my last book, Cross-Cultural Aspects of Tourism and Hospitality, a Services, Marketing and Management Perspective. So I mainly studied tourism, hospitality, services, marketing, management, human resources in these journals, and some books. So that's my end of my presentation, Hannah. It's over to you.
Thank you so much. So, dear participants, you can use hands like that. And I'm going to see you if you have any questions. I think we can have like 20 minutes more for questions and answers session. If you have anything to comment, I mean, like to ask a question, of course you should do that, okay? I don't see raised hands, so I'm gonna have an.
You fell asleep, yeah. I suppose.
No, come on.
Yeah.
190 people. There is okay. So we have a question from.
I hypnotized them.
Yes, I'm so sorry. I will pronounce you as your email sounds. So Purity for Life 88. Please go with your question, and the next will be Stefan Achemong. Go on. You can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good evening.
Yeah.
Thank you, Professor Koç. Purity Daniel. My question is basically like for someone who has never done research ever, for the very first time, you've never done any research, what would you advise a person like how to start?
Well, actually, there are so many things to say for that. Actually, you should take courses, first of all, in research methodology, and start with your, doing some sort of a small assignments first. Of course, we wouldn't recommend you to aim for SSCI journals at that stage. There's such a long way. You should read books on research methodology, many books maybe, and you should prepare, first of all, your dissertations, masters or PhDs or whatever, and then you should think about publishing research. Okay, so a lot of things to say, but we can't just mention them all here.
Okay, thank you very much for your answer. I think pretty satisfied. Please, Stefan Achinpong, you have the stage, right?
Yeah, thank you very much for the insightful presentation. Because of network problems, I just want to know if the slides are going to be made available for us so that we can go over again.
There will be a record, and of course the record will be provided.
Not the slides, but the recording or the program will be available.
Yeah, that will be fine. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Stefan. And we go for the next question. Prayam Vada Savamber. I'm so sorry for spelling you incorrectly, but go on. Please join. Unmute yourself and go.
Yeah.
You're good? Okay, I see Meltem starts speaking, so go on. We're here for you. Just go on.
Okay, thank you, Erdogan Hocam. I would like to ask if you have any recommendations about choosing paper, the journal. I mean, choosing the journal about, independent of its impact factor. I can check that much, but about the subject of our article.
All right.
How would you propose us to pick the right journal?
Okay, as I said, check the objectives of the journal, whether in terms of the issue your paper address, which journal it would fit in. Okay, so you need to look at a number of journals. Now, you, as I understand from what you're saying, you have finished the paper. Now, what you can do is to look at a number of journals in the area and look at some of the papers, and maybe look at the key concepts in your paper and look for them in that journal. Whether there are many papers addressing those key concepts, your variables in that paper, then it may be a suitable paper, a suitable journal for you.
Okay, thank you. Another question, again, about this issue, if you allow me. Is there a tendency about the methodology among the journals? I mean, some journals prefer the quantitative, some journals prefer. So should we also check that?
Definitely. Some journals are heavily maybe quantitative based. Some of them are, qualitative based. Qualitative, not so many papers are lean towards qualitative papers, but there are some coming up that needs to be checked as well. Yes, definitely, for sure. Look at the papers, how many papers there are qualitative they have published, or the ones, a few, they are exceptionally good or whatever. Would yours be fitting that and all that? That needs to be checked.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And we will go back to Prayam Vada. If you're unmute yourself, go on.
Okay, so good afternoon, and thank you for the presentation. It was very, very insightful. So my question to the professor is that, we have students submitting dissertation or even, have been doing dissertation, but they had problem with the literature review. I want to know how you make it easy for your students eventually to be able not to be descriptive when they submit a literature review, but rather being argumentative and grasping the sense of the journals that they are reading.
Excellent. Argumentation comes from the grasp of it. So if they know, for instance, personality just in glossary terms, i.e. extroversion is this, introversion is this and that, then they should read more about it. What are the implications, antecedents of extroversion, introversion? Then they'll be able to have a deeper understanding, relatively deeper understanding of the topic. And how that topic relates to the other variable can be written in an argumentative way only if the person has got a good grasp of the topic. So as I said, in the literature review, do not just explain the concepts. You use them how you arrive at your topic, and that comes with the level of grasp. So they should maybe in small groups explain and discuss some of the concepts. They should in a way criticize themselves, what may be the implications of them, what other theories or concepts that specific particular concept may relate to. That sort of exercise may be useful, maybe.
Thank you. We'll surely try this with the students.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. The next question is from Emmanuel Arzua, and Ernest will be the next one after that. Go on, Emmanuel, we're here. Unmute yourself, please, and ask your question. Emmanuel?
Maybe by mistake they put up a hand.
Maybe. Ernest? Oh, no. Emmanuel is with us. Yeah, go on. I'm so sorry, Emmanuel. I mute you. Please forgive me, but could you type your question in chat? I will pronounce it if it's okay with you. Okay, because we have some kind of technical issues. Oh, go on. Now you're good.
Yeah. Hello. Yeah, good evening. Hello. Emmanuel is on the line.
Great. We can hear you. So
yes.
Just ask your question, please.
I have a little challenge. I have enjoyed the discussion.
Thank you.
And I learned there's another one on Friday. Is it on the same or on different topics? And for those of us who could not also even register, we just joined without registering. Do we have the opportunity to register later?
I'm sorry, Emmanuel, but can we just
maybe
leave
you write
these
it
questions?
in the chat.
Yeah, could you write it in the chat first? And now we are asking questions to Professor about his presentation. About technical registration programs and certificates, you're going to ask questions after we will release Professor, right? So in 20 minutes, I will answer all your questions. Or leaving them in the chat, I will answer them later. Okay, Ernest? Some technical issues. We have some technical issues. Ernest, hi, how are you doing? Can you hear us? You can unmute yourself and go with the question. Okay, Ernest will come next, and Gulberg is ready to ask the question. Please go.
Hello, Erdogan Hocam. Always a pleasure to listen to you. It's very engaging when you lecture us. My question goes about the discouragement when we are rejected or when it takes 2 years to get published. How do we get over that? And once we get rejected, you know, we modify it into another journal's editorial format, and then, you know, submit it again, and it takes time, and the data gets older, etc. Do you believe that we should never get discouraged and, you know, try with our best to get it published in a good journal, or just give it up?
Okay, thank you very much, Gülberk. Actually, we all get rejected. If someone says that I never get rejected, he is or she is a liar. Okay, people would get rejected. Even you know, top editors you look up with respect and with awe, they all get rejected as well. I understand that we it may be discouraging, of course, especially for all of us, because you feel that you are prepared for a good response and it doesn't happen. So you feel like you've been turned down. What I advise, send it to a few journals, and then if it is really always uphill, all strong comments, then you send it to a lower journal. Okay, so actually you learn a lot by reading the reviews, comments, and eventually you get better at it. But nowadays, especially this year, even the top researchers are getting rejections. So don't be discouraged. Keep at it. As I said, valuable things are valuable because A, they are rare, B, they are hard to get. So if they had been so easy, there are so many journals now, actually, compared with 10, 15 years back. There are more opportunities. So don't get discouraged. It's going to be okay, I would say. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming and watching, joining.
Thank you very much. We have Ludmila Zagarwika, who is going to ask the question. And if Ernest can hear us, you can be the next.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor, for your such an interesting and very informative presentation. And you're an experienced author. And could you please name just your own experience, your own point of view? Is it any difference between Q1 and, for example, Q4 or 3 journals publishing?
Actually, it's not so clear cut. Okay. Actually, sometimes there are journals which may not be listed in the SSCI, and it may be more difficult to get published there. Okay, so actually, what I would say that Q1 journals, and some of them are really top tier journals. Please also look at other classifications like Australian higher institutions classifications, A, B, D, C ranking. They are more specific than that. Or although it may be a Q1, according to them, it may be B, not A, not A asterisk. It may be just B. So please look at more definitive classifications. They give out more information. So the British have got one specific ranking of journals, and but British one is not up to date. They left it at 2015, I think. Australian one is quite a recent one. They update it regularly, and you can see that whether it's an A or B journal. So you are quite right in saying that there aren't miles of difference between Q1 and Q4. It may not be the case, but of course, some top tier journals in Q1, they are really, really difficult to get published there, actually.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. We have now questions in chat. Those who were struggling with technical issues decided to just put it in chat. So Ernest, thank you very much. He is asking, does the originality of a paper means that nobody has worked on the topic before?
Yes, in a way, but as I said, it should be demonstrate a level of intellect. It should show that it is interesting, because sometimes it may be really original, but it may not be important at all. So it should carry those two things together. It should be important and it should be original. And that doesn't mean there are so many things which have not been researched before, but they are not all worthy of research, I'm saying.
Thank you very much for your answer. I hope, Ernst, you satisfied. And next one is question from our colleague Amos Nkup, who's asking the next one. Is there any technique for responding to reviewers without offending them?
Actually, I used to deliver this in the past as a workshop, face to face when I did. I would recommend you, first of all, to look at all the reviewers' comments separately. Okay, make a table. That person said, this reviewer said this, and on the next box, write what your response to it. In this way, you will not omit anything. And if you do this, what happens in the end is that you have more or less responded to all of the responses of the reviewer. If the reviewer has provided you with an essay type paragraph like criticism and comments, and if you respond in that manner, it's not clear specifically how you responded to them. So my advice would be to write them separately, each one, and across that in the other box, write what. In this way, you are in a way tying the hands of the reviewer. You are not leaving an escape for the reviewer. In terms of being polite, well, we should be polite to those people. Of course, they may make wrong evaluations, judgmental decisions they may make, but they are there reading your paper and giving you some ideas. Even your best friends would not read your paper diligently. Give your paper to a friend of yours, how much time would they spend? And so we should be thankful to them. Of course, they can make mistakes. Of course, they can jump into wrong conclusions. We need to be definitely respectful for them. We should thank them. But of course, if what they are saying is not correct, we should specify that. We are not referring to that in our paper. Our paper has not embarked on this study to explore this. Our objective is different than that. It has been misunderstood, and whatever that should be said in the paper. Not all the comments should be taken and adopted. You should be able to, in a way, in a nice manner, argue with them.
Okay, thank you very much. We have more questions in chat. Mohammed Abida asks a question. Professor, do you think that developing some research or topic can affect the originality of it?
Sorry, I missed the beginning of your sentence.
Do you think that developing some research or topic can affect the originality of it?
I still don't understand. Developing a topic can influence originality. What do we mean by that?
There is, I think, a dilemma that researchers have. So if you're having some originality, nobody published that before you, and if you're publishing that, you're not original anymore. So I don't know, maybe that kind of way.
Right.
I'm not sure. Mohammed, could you explain more? Okay. Exactly what I said, right? So this is a kind of dilemma that you are losing your originality if you're publishing it. No, I don't think so.
Well,
Mohammed.
of course. It's a market which consumes originality. It's a stove, you put in your wood and it's burnt. It's not original now, maybe. You break a world record, it may be the record for a while, but after that, some people will make other things. So, of course, after that, it will not be original for other people. They should not repeat this study afterwards.
Okay, thank you very much. This is the question for another discussion. We have another question, interesting. Is citing the editor or editors of the journal can help? Could you comment on that?
It's a minimal thing. If the person has got some important publications in that area, as you should not omit any important studies in that area, you shouldn't omit editors' papers either. So that's simple as that.
Thank you very much. And we have another question from Amos Nkub. Is self-citation ethical? And this is his additional question. Is self-citation ethical?
It is, up to a level, of course. And we know that we have modern software tools now that, like in Science Wall, they ignore self-citations. So, you shouldn't, you can't go forward by making lots of self-citations. You can't go too far.
Thank you very much. One more question. Okay, so we are working on question of AZ Ilmaz, and we're going to have one more question from you guys, and that will be the end of the session. So the question is, can we publish more than one article departing from our PhD research?
Say it again, please. Can we
publish more than one paper departing from our PhD research? What is it departing here? I'm so sorry.
Not departing out of, he or she is trying to say. So of course we can, but if in your country, if there are regulations, I don't know, but you can publish as many papers from your PhD as possible. Why not?
Yeah.
And the UK, in Germany, in some countries, for each dissertation chapter, they ask you to publish something. So you may publish 6 out of a dissertation, if you like, if it is appropriate.
Yes, I know that there is a minimum limitation for papers to obtain PhD, and it depends on country and depends on legislation. But of course, it should be more than one.
Yeah.
And do we have any
data slice? Data slicing is a dangerous thing. So you use one bit of your data for another paper, you slice it. They call it salami slicing. It's not. It is an ethical issue. So while you can publish it in one paper, if you do that specifically to make multiple publications, with that in mind, if you work, it is an ethical issue. Salami slicing or data slicing is not something we recommend. Nobody recommends, of course.
Okay, so we have no other questions. Thank you very much, Professor Koç. That was really insightful. I was doing my notes, even notes, because I'm going to use the record. Dear participants, you're going to use the record too, I hope. You're going to rewatch that. For now, we can thank our guest speaker. You can leave your comments in chat. There are a lot of grateful words here. And for now, thank you very much, Professor Koç.